play in this. We need to take responsibility for our own actions. And this week is National Road Safety Week. Every year, around 1,200 people are killed and more than 40,000 are seriously injured on Australian roads. Road crashes are the biggest killer of Australian children under 15 and the second biggest killer of all Australians aged between 15 and 24. And they're such preventable deaths. We know every time we get into a car, we're getting into a weapon, but not enough people are remembering that when they set out on our roads. Duncan Wakes-Miller is a founding member of the Road Trauma Support Group New South Wales. His 17-year-old son Barney was killed by a drunk speeding driver back in 2020. So he can certainly talk passionately about this, given the tragedy that both he and his family went through in 2020. I've got him on the line right now. Duncan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mark. How are you going?
Mate, I'm very well. And firstly, I'm sorry for what you went through and your family back in 2020, but you've obviously, you're using that heartbreak to now encourage motorists and tell motorists what they need to do to stay safe on their roads, because these crashes are preventable. We just need people out there doing the right thing as opposed to the wrong thing, Duncan.
Yeah, I think it's a huge problem. When you look at the number of people who died on the roads in the last 3 years in New South Wales, it's getting worse, not better. And I want to start by acknowledging amazing work that the police do in New South Wales. The problem is it's getting worse, not better. And the standard we accept right now in terms of road safety is killing people. And politicians and policymakers really do need to make some changes here. It's not acceptable that nearly a person dies pretty much every day in New South Wales on the roads. And there's 10,695 serious incidents and serious injuries on New South Wales roads annually. This is a huge issue. And it's not something that is just a figure. This impacts families, community. The ripple effect of road trauma is profound and catastrophic. My son Barney was killed by a drunk driver who walked free from court with a 12-month driving conviction. The judicial system has to change. We need to change the game. Things aren't happening fast enough, and by sitting on our hands and not doing stuff, more people are dying. And it's not fair on emergency services and the police to have to knock on the door like they did with us in the middle of the night and inform someone that their loved one has been killed by the illegal act of someone in a car. We need to start treating road crime in the same way as gun crime or violent crime or domestic violence. It's a social anathema, and we need to change the game, and we need some significant changes. I have sat at the launch of the Road Safety Awareness Week for 2 or 3 years now, and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. So we need your help, Mark, and we need your team, 2GB. We need your community, your listeners, to help us make some changes.
You're right about the judiciary, Duncan, and I'm glad you've touched on that. I was sent a heartbreaking letter from a listener who lost his brother in a crash when an oncoming driver failed to navigate a bend and slammed into him at speed over the weekend. Yet all the driver got was an 18-month community corrections order. No jail time, even though a life was lost. That's just not good enough. And you touched on the driver of the car that hit your 17-year-old son. We need to put the fear of God into drivers to say that if you don't do the right thing on the road and you claim someone's life, there'll be no community corrections orders, there'll be no driving offender courses, you'll go to jail, you'll serve hard time, and you'll serve a punishment for claiming the life of another road user. Is it as simple as that, Duncan?
Unfortunately not. I think that's part of the story. But we need everyone in our community to say it's unacceptable to drive super fast. It's unacceptable to drive under the influence of drugs or alcohol. In the same way, it's unacceptable to hit a woman or a woman to hit a man. Domestic violence is seen as unacceptable. Why do we expect or allow people to drive like this? There's a social unacceptable aspect to it, but there's also a judicial piece. And people are getting away with murder. People are getting nicked for drunk driving, and they're getting a Section 10 and they're walking away. This is a moral issue. We're letting people die by indecision and inaction. We need to support the New South Wales Police in terms of what they do They're driving across the bridge right now, but I bet they could do with some more help to really change the game here. We need a judicial system that doesn't refer to these situations as accidents and provide leniency. And we need a system of rehabilitation where we take people off the road, and before they can go back on the road, they have to prove that they're capable of doing it. It's not a right to drive, it's a privilege. And people need to be qualified, and they need to respect that. 99% of people are fantastic drivers. It's just there's this few percentage that kill, and too many people are dying.
Well, I've got to admit to you, Duncan, and I'm sure you're probably the same, that, I sit here leading into a long weekend and I talk about, the police launching an operation. They're going to be out there, visible policing, all the warnings, do the right thing, double demerits, all that sort of thing. But come Tuesday, when I'm back at work and we get through a public holiday long weekend, I get a release from the police that's about 3 pages long, and it's a bloke who's drunk drive. It's another person who's been speeding at 150 clicks an hour, and you think to yourself, these people must be living on another planet if they don't understand the dangers of what they're doing. And I think that's what it comes back to. It comes back to personal responsibility as well here, Duncan.
I think you touch on something there. I think when you have first-hand experienced this situation, then you do not ever consider having a drink before you're driving, or someone that's happened to. So having victim impact panels where if you're a drunk driver or someone who's killed someone, you have to sit in front of a panel of families who explain the absolute catastrophic loss that their behaviour has caused. Maybe that'll change behaviour. At the moment, you just get a Section 10, a slap on the hand, and off you go. At the moment, you don't go to jail if you kill someone for more than a couple of years, or in my case, the driver just walked free as if nothing had happened, showing no remorse. So we need to take road crime seriously. We need to speak to the right people around getting rehabilitation for these bad drivers, and we need to make it a social anathema like domestic violence. It is unacceptable to ever think that you can drink and drive or take drugs and drive. Never.
Duncan, you speak so well. Have you sat down with those on Macquarie Street and spoken about, one, what your family's been through and what we're talking about today, the need for change? Has anyone invited you to speak to them on Macquarie Street?
Yes, I have. I've spoken to Chris Minns. I've spoken to Michael Daly. I've spoken to Jenny Aitchison. I've spoken to John Graham over the period of time. So they have a law reform manifesto from the Road Trauma Support Group. They have 2 research reports on the impact and the human impact of road trauma. They have the information, they have the data, they have the evidence. Let's see whether they've got the kahunas to actually make some action, because the police and the road safety experts in New South Wales need a policy change to really take this seriously and put some weight behind it. The cost of human life is ridiculous. 280,000 people in New South Wales, that's 4.4% of the population, have experienced the death of a relative or friend due to a fatal road crime in New South Wales. Now, that's a big number. This is a big moral, social health issue, and it's costing us a lot. People are more likely to commit suicide, marriages break down, all sorts of downstream issues when these things happen. So we need some fortitude from our politicians and policymakers, and we need it now, because we don't want to sit down this time next year for another Road Safety Week launch and nothing has changed.
Well, Duncan, I'll do whatever I can to help you, mate, so let's keep in touch. I wish Barney was still here, but gee whiz, mate, I reckon he'd be enormously proud of what you're doing when it comes to the road safety message and urging people to change their behaviour by not having a drink, by not speeding, by putting on their seatbelt, by not touching their mobile phone. It is such an important conversation to be had, and if it's all right with you, we'll keep in touch, and if there's anything I can do from my end, mate, I'll certainly jump on board and help wherever I can, mate. So thank you for joining us, and all we can do is keep having these conversations, and hopefully people will start listening.
Thank you, Mark. You're a good man.
Good on you, mate. That's Duncan Wakes-Miller, who went through what no father should have to go through back in 2020 when there was a knock on the door. Duncan, your 17-year-old son, Barney's been killed in a car crash. Hit and killed by a speeding driver back in 2020 and under the influence of alcohol.